Yeah. But so whatever works. Do you need to check, or it's going fine? It's good. Hello. We have as short or as long time that you want, but I'm always interested in hearing what one of the reasons why I started writing these shows was so that I could hear other people's stories, because it seems like once you start sharing, people feel safe enough, especially if people have laughed a bit, to share their own stories. So if you either have questions about my own story, or you want to share parts of your own, or ask questions. We also have a psychologist and a psychiatrist here, so if you have questions that are more clinical that I won't be able to answer because I'm not a clinician, I can pass the mic, so to speak, on to them. So if you have any comments or questions, I'm always interested in seeing how relevant the story is. Yeah, I'll go here and then there. Yeah.
How do you deal with the social stigma?
Woo! Oh, let's start with an easy question. So I'm just going to repeat the question. So how to deal with the social stigma. It took a lot of trial by and error, really. I think everybody has their own style of dealing with it. I think it's just the same thing that in life, I think all of us have our sort of insecurity buttons. And we learn how to deal with those. And some people are better at dealing with it in one way than the other. Mine, well, I started out where I thought honesty is the best policy. It is, but not on the first date. I found out sort of various ways where, not everyone wants to know that I was tied down to a gurney and I'm stable on medication. And so I think also as I got more comfortable with the illness, I was less affected by any comments or the social stigma. What I also did occasionally was when I either heard it, if someone made a crack that I didn't think was really appropriate, or saw something in the paper or something, I would write in. Even though I know it might not change a lot of people's minds, but it might affect some. I think also, I use humor, and I'm not politically correct, if you haven't guessed, because I think I would rather have people asking questions or making comments because they feel comfortable enough to ask about it, so that, because the stigma to me isn't really the problem, it's when it's the elephant in the room, and no one ever says anything. And then it never gets explored, and then it becomes prejudice and discrimination, and then that's when it really becomes a problem. So, one of the examples, it was still very odd. I was going to another engagement, and we were in one of those vans for the hotel, and we were traveling, and it was the captain. It was a small plane. It was captain and I guess the flight attendant, and me going to the same hotel, and so somehow he said something, and he asked what I did, and I'm very upfront. I said, well, I do a show about my own experience with bipolar disorder. And he says, oh, which part of you is talking now, or something, like some really bad, right? And this is a pilot, but if I'm going to get mad at him, it's not really so anyway, I said, well, I just wanted to say one thing, is that I have a double standard that, if I was Italian, I could make jokes about being Italian, but I'm not Italian. So unless you have bipolar disorder, you really shouldn't make jokes about being bipolar. And he went, oh, and he was really, I think it was because he was so uncomfortable that sort of cracked the joke. Anything. He said, are you fixed now? And then I thought, okay, this is a lost cause. This is really a lost cause. And he's flying my plane. And then I thought, and I'd see him in the morning because it was the same thing, right? And I thought, oh my God, it'd be funny to say, hey, yeah, I'm on antipsychotic medications, but I didn't take enough of them. But I thought, oh yeah. So, I think part of it is being around enough well people, and I don't mean well in terms of whether they have mental health or not. I mean well as in not ignorant, not insensitive, understanding that they may not understand something, so they should ask questions instead of making. And the biggest thing I think is also just letting people get to know me first. Because I think if I told people, then if I had any behavior, not unusual like delusional, but just, a moody day, that people would chalk it up to my mood disorder. And I really didn't want my personality to be pathologized. I didn't want my exuberance to be mania or anything like this. So I was really selective who I told and why I told them. And when I was able to make sort of good choices when I had good experiences, so it sort of almost counteracted any of the, and then I could just laugh about it, like the pilot, who I have now good material for. Right. So, yeah.
I guess one of the things that I hoped you'd do is that you'd actually make your play talk about how successful you've been. That whole thing of demonstrating wellness, because I think that's the biggest thing that can combat stigma.
Yeah.
Is I sometimes almost make it a game to tell people, because I've been well for a long time. I bet you don't believe this.
Right. Yeah.
So I wish the play had carried into not just that you went back to work at one point, but that you actually have become
and the comment was about being able to really show the well part, that because speak up about our mental illness because we've been well, and repercussions can still be real if we do say anything, but there's many people, more people that are well than not well. And a couple things, like I have another show called Funny You Don't Look Crazy, and that's because what people would say, same things, well, wow, you don't look nuts. And I go, no, blah, no. But it's really still only goes into when I was able to go back to work and just beginning. And the unfortunate thing is, wellness is really boring, which is great. Like I love boring. Normal is great, but it doesn't lend itself to drama, unfortunately. Not to say that I couldn't do sort of little snippets and stuff, but it would have to be a counterpoint to something else. And I guess part of me hopes in a way that the medium is also the message, so that, but I totally understand, because I get frustrated because our only point of reference really is newspapers and movies. And they're usually always showing tragic stories, horrific stories, totally misrepresented kind of stories. So you don't see people functioning well and having a great life, paying taxes, getting divorces, all that kind of stuff. Not so great lives, but whatever. And so I still feel like it's really important, but I think that sometimes it has to be that the fact that you're speaking out and being able to share your story is part of the message. It's who you are. So the fact that I'm working as an actor and a speaker and doing it and being stable for years is part of the message. It's just it doesn't happen to be part of the theatrical piece. But your point's really well taken, and I've tried to think about it, how to do that, and haven't quite figured it out yet. Haven't cracked that nut yet. Any other questions? I'll go here and then there. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about your BFA. Is it in theatrical or in theater?
Yeah. The question was about my BFA, and it's a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting. They at the University of BC, long time ago. I graduated like '88, and they have a theater program and an acting program. They have music, fine arts, and stuff. But I took it.
And just a little bit of a thing. How did your peers in from that period and in the school and all that, how did they, I know this is like, did they has that affected you professionally in any way?
Combination. The question was, has it affected me professionally? And when I was at school, I was able to get through it without really having any major I didn't have any hospitalizations. I was quite depressed and slightly hypomanic, but I was able to get through school. Ironically, there was a woman in our class who had to drop out in the second year, and I ran into her when I was performing later this show at a conference for, I think it was psychosocial rehabilitation. She was a mental health worker or a rehab worker, and she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder in university when we were in the same year. And professionally, I thought it did. I talked to my agent just a while ago. I don't do regular television and film anymore. This is all what I do, and part of it is because it's more stable. I can manage my sleep better. I'm sort of under my kind of, I guess I'm able to make it flexible and work for me. And also I had to realize that the lifestyle, the financial insecurity, the rejection, crazy hours, no pun intended, drinking, drugging, all that kind of stuff, it's just not, I'm not cut out for it. I tried it when I first started doing this, and all that awful pleading actor kind of stuff just came right out. And there are some people that totally can make it work for themselves, and I can't. I was nervous in the beginning because when Facebook started, I was friending people from long time ago, and that was probably more vulnerable. I felt way more vulnerable just because I was doing something, and I didn't know if they sensed that something had been going on when they knew me or whatever. So.
Well, I see the point of the question is I'm just wondering if how your work is viewed by those,
that's really
by your peers, we'll say.
Yeah, by the theater peers, you
Yes.
mean? Yeah, how my work is viewed by theater peers. I think in some ways, at times, they're envious because I work way more being a crazy person than I do if I was doing traditional theater, right? So I think I was lucky enough to be invited to write a solo show for Solo Collective, which is I love their work. And it was really well received. I was thrilled. But I haven't done this show for sort of a general theater audience as a typical theater run. I'd want to get different production values and things. I do it minimally so it's easy to mount, but I would be very curious. I'd be more nervous about doing it for a general public, only because people are usually going in for a night of entertainment, not necessarily wanting to validate. But Next to Normal, I'm sure some of you, the musical Next to Normal is this is what I thought was so funny, a musical about mental illness. And it's won Tony Awards, and it's touring, and it's supposed to be, there's mixed reactions from people who have mental illness that have seen it, but it's gotten rave reviews. So I know it's not a subject that can't be in the mainstream, and more it is. But yeah, questions?
Hi, yeah.
Hi.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the whole team that put this together, because I'll share the fact that I'm bipolar myself. I'm 24 now, on set, age of 12, very confusing adolescent, can all imagine.
Oh, I bet.
But yeah, I think this is really amazing because I've thought about, I've written monologues. I was a theater kid. I did everything,
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for, having the,
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I'm actually here with the UVic Psychology Organization of Students of Social, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so I just wanted to also speak to this question back here, I felt like it was about wishing to see more the positive side of bipolar, and I found in my personal experience, my journey with, I found one of the really big sort of philosophies, if you want to call it that, is I find a lot of going depressed to mania is when you are coming out of a depression into a mania, there is this overwhelming need to overcompensate.
Yeah.
And she'll look, I'm well, I'm great, I can socialize, I'm not depressed, I'm not hiding in my room anymore, I'm so fun.
I know. Look out, world!
I'm not crazy. So I think a lot of that, I would just like to speak to that and say, a huge healing part for me has been not to feel like I have to act normal. Not to feel the pressure to be look, I'm acting like everyone else. I'm normal. Look, I'm so normal. Because to me, a lot of the time, that was what was pushing me into manias. And to be able to say that's what may in future push me into manias, because I find a big part of the whole issue was the stigma, and I can't imagine the pain your poor mother experienced back in the day, because I mean, I was just telling my friends here now, I can whip out the bipolar in any situation if I do it right, you know?
Yeah.
When someone's like, no, I know this person's bipolar, which was, yeah, me too. And I'm doing okay now, but yeah, tell me about this person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, from my perspective, not feeling like coming to the place where you realize this isn't something that you have to cut out of your brain.
No. It's part of our tapestry.
It's not fixing it. It's like learning to deal with it and live with it.
Yeah.
And to getting away from having to become okay, like the pressure of being cured and the pressure.
Yeah, because I really believe that the more that I respect, and I call them limits of my illness. I just know that I have to get a certain amount of sleep. I have to have way more rest than, like, I can sometimes work for 4 hours at a time, only 2 hours at a time, sometimes 8, sometimes 10. If I want to work 12 hours, I've got to be careful, because if I do it for too long, but the more that I respect those limits, the less I'm limited by my illness. And so to me, it's just like, I mean, it's not the same, because this is what a doctor used to say, well, it's just like diabetes. And I go, no, it's not. It's not. You know, you don't see people looking at the door and for escape when you say you have diabetes. If you say you've been psychotic, it's a big difference. And so, but the idea that, let's say with an ulcer or anything, lactose intolerant. I heard a guy today, he was at the restaurant or something, and he's this real big business guy, and he said, oh, well, I can't have that because I'm lactose intolerant. And I thought it was so interesting, because, he's like he's the complete antithesis of what I would think of someone who would be lactose intolerant. I'm going, oh my God, I've got stigma. I'm thinking of lactose intolerant people. And so it's this whole thing that I realized, right, we all have our sort of things that we've got to watch out for. And I think the reason that there's a lot of stigma around it is because we don't talk about it. So to some degree, anything that you don't talk about and that we don't understand completely. And the other thing I always want to bring up, people talk about diabetes, and yes, okay, and anybody that's in the room that's diabetic, my apologies, but, it's the pancreas, all the insulin. Well, we have the most complicated organ. We are the champions of dysfunctional brain circuitry. We should be proud. Don't you think? Yes. It's like, no wonder. So I just go, why not, stand up on the rooftops and stuff? Well, okay, maybe not on the rooftop, but anyway. Maybe I'll stick around for long, but maybe one more question or something, and then I'll certainly be here if you didn't get a chance to ask a question. I'm not sure who was next or if there was someone next. No questions? Oh, went up there? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can identify with what you're saying about the energy levels and how many hours you can work. Because with my bipolar, I always say I eat when I'm hungry and sleep when I get tired. I have a real challenge with having a routine, proper